So we call this satsang as be still. Long back, we actually said the name of the satsang is Chumma Iru or be still. So thought we can explore what being still is. We can explore it in a fresh manner. First of all, every time we inquire into our true nature, we inquire into the self, it has to be done in a very fresh way, not out of simply what we have already learned or the memory or anything like that. Because the knowledge that we have in this process can be an impediment to listening or speaking in a fresh manner. If we have preformed conclusions that results in evaluating everything based on those conclusions and either agreeing or disagreeing, and thereby we are not able to look at it in a fresh way. So one of the important things about Shravana, as it's called in Sanskrit, listening, is to listen fully, including our reactions to it as well. So whenever we listen to anything, there may be some reactions. And if we identify with those reactions, then we are listening only partially. We are saying, I like this, I don't like this, I agree, I disagree. That voice, if we identify with it, then we are listening through that voice. Then the listening is only partial. But if we listen to that very voice, just like listening to anyone else, because that voice is again just thought, it is not me. To be very clear that the voice in the head is not me, and therefore it can be simply listened to as well, is part of listening. And when we listen to this voice in the head, along with the content, and this is true anywhere, wherever we are, when we listen to it or when we watch something as well, if we watch through the commentary in the head or listen through that commentary, we are only partially watching or listening. Even when we are in a very natural spot, we may be looking at a sunset or we may be in a beautiful place, but even then, if the commentary in the head comes up and we watch through that, then we are not fully present to that moment. We are watching through a past memory or some projection of some kind. So it's important to listen or watch fully, because that itself is part of meditation. When we are listening to anything, actually, and especially when it comes to self-knowledge, if we are able to listen to it as if we are listening for the first time, then we bring that quality of the beginner. The Zen folks have an expression, beginner's mind. That's what it means. Having a beginner's mind every time is very beautiful, because then we come to it in a very fresh way. So with that, if we look at what being still is, we notice that as time goes, in any field of knowledge, any field of activity, memory is gathered. Just as the physical body gathers food and thereby grows, the mind gathers memory and thereby it grows as well. So the mind accumulates memory, which is essential for any discipline. Whatever we are learning, if one is practicing, let's say, learning a musical instrument or learning a programming language or any field of knowledge or activity, it requires accumulating knowledge, which is memory. So we learn something, and then that becomes part of the memory, and that memory is in turn used for the next action, and the memory gets refined, and this is the process. So there is a process of becoming better and better at something through the application of memory, knowledge, and experience. So this is the cycle we have to become better at anything. We gain memory, we store it, we use it, and new experience happens which refines the knowledge and the memory, and it goes on. The important pointer is that this process of becoming happens through time does not involve any separate structure called the me that is journeying with it, and that is the core pointer or the core illusion we have. So when we engage in any activity, the activity comes up with its own subject and object for engaging in that activity. And that subject for the activity is the memory that is stored, which is put into operation along with the faculties of the body, the intellect, all of that, whatever is essential in engaging in the activity. And that faculty is refined. For instance, if something even very simple as, let's say, riding a bicycle, whatever faculties are necessary in riding a bicycle in the body gets refined over time. Or something like swimming, any such activity, whether it uses the physical body or the intellect or the sensory perceptions, those faculties are refined over time. They become better, and thereby they become proficient in their particular skill or art or discipline. But the very important and most subtle thing to recognize here is that there is no separate entity other than the faculty who is becoming better at that particular discipline. So we normally, and this is the core delusion, is that we think I am getting good at something. So this I is superimposed on the particular art or discipline or activity, and thereby it gets situated in that faculty. And therefore, the sense of me is invested with the particular faculty in that case, which is becoming better over time. And therefore, we think I am becoming better at something. So we may use the word I as a convenient pronoun to say that I am swimming or I am eating or whatever. But if we are very perceptive and we look at it carefully, every activity is done by the various faculties, including the mind, which is all going through time. So that's the most important thing to recognize, is that the whole of all faculties of the body, the energy, the mind is all journeying through time. And that movement in time involves becoming. There is no being still there. But when we identify the I as the movement of becoming, then the I cannot be still either, because I think I am the one doing this activity, I am the one getting better at it, I am the one not good at it. So the I, which is a psychological entity created as ego, as the I thought, gets superimposed on these activities, and every time we therefore identify the I with various activities. And the activities can be also relationships, as we know. So it can be relationships, it can be identification with ideologies, it can be various things. Everything that is changing in time, we identify with it as me. And because of this identification of the me with the changeful movements in time, we think I am changing, I am becoming something. So the core pointer of being still is not to stop the activities of the body or the mind, because it can never be stopped. The body is always in movement. Even when we are sitting still, there are a million processes happening in the body which are moving. The mind is similarly perceiving things. Even perception is movement. To see a table as a table is an activity. So there is perception, there is physical activity, there is recognition. All of this is happening. But the most important recognition is who is perceiving, who is acting, who is engaging in any activity. And when we look at it very carefully, we recognize that it is the various faculties of the body, of the mind, working on various objects. So that's why in Gita, Krishna says, gunas work with gunas. That's the essence of the whole of activity. So the gunas are, as we know, sattva, rajas, and tamas, are generally speaking material qualities. The material qualities that are there, both within and without, interact with each other. So there is only matter in the body and there is matter outside the body. What we call the mind is nothing but movement of matter. It is neurons in the body that's moving. What we call intellect is matter. All the subtle faculties we have are essentially just material movement of energy through time. And they interact with material energy that are outside the body. So this interaction of matter with matter happens all the time. The only and the most fundamental delusion is to identify that I am interacting with anything. To superimpose the I on this interaction of matter with matter is where we lose the stillness of being and we get caught in the process of becoming. Then we are identified with the movement of becoming, and therefore in becoming there is always conflict, because becoming is always going to be partial. One can never become perfect in anything. Even the greatest exponents of any field will say that they are only still learning. If they are truly humble, they will say that they are still learning, because the process of becoming is infinite. The universe is infinite, and nobody can claim to be a master in even one discipline. So that is the nature of the world, is that it is constantly growing. Even the universe is said to be expanding every moment. So it is said, in fact, that even if we travel at the speed of light, we cannot go to the end of the universe, because universe is expanding faster than the speed of light. So the universe is constantly expanding, and that is seen in us too. Knowledge is always expanding. More information comes. As there is a saying in Tamil, what we know is of the measure of our palm, and what we don't know is the size of the ocean. That is how it is always. And therefore, becoming is always going to be a limited process, and it is essential though, because one has to engage in his dharma, whatever it is, and that involves activities and so on. But the most important recognition is that there is no me involved in becoming. The me that is caught in becoming is the root of all problem. And therefore, to separate the me from becoming is self inquiry. When we ask the question, that's why, who is engaged in thought, who is thinking, who is acting, then we recognize that the movement of the body or the mind or any of this is happening in the ground of awareness. There is the unmoving ground of awareness in which these activities are happening. And that ground of awareness is not moving through time, it is not changing through time. What is changing through time, what is becoming, is the material energy, the gunas, that is constantly evolving. So, one of the important things, therefore, to recognize is that there is no how in being still. Because when we bring the question how, we are again making it into another becoming. How do I become still? The very question is a contradiction, because, first of all, as we saw, becoming and stillness don't go together. Becoming is always movement, stillness is being. And the one who is still as the ground of being is never involved in becoming. So all there is the false knot, as it's called, the false connect between the ground of being and the movement of becoming. So the entire process of self inquiry, therefore, is to only recognize and undo this false knot. So we are not, therefore, learning any method to become still. It is not a process in time. It is not also, therefore, an accumulation of memory. And that is the reason why we also spoke about how it doesn't require any book knowledge. We can read a few targeted books which are just pointing to this wisdom. When it comes to becoming, there is endless amount of books which are necessary. Any particular field has so much knowledge, whether it's music or whether it's science or technology, all of them, they have endless number of books. And even in the traditional, for instance, Vedic scriptures, there is so many branches of knowledge that are given, which are all in the realm of becoming. There is grammar, there is prosody, there is astrology, there is the art of archery, there is the science of health, Ayurveda, there is the discipline of keeping the body healthy through asanas. So there is the science of economics, which was called Arthashastra. So there are so many disciplines that are there even in the Vedic canon, and there is also similarly now different fields of knowledge which are all in the process of becoming. So they all have lots and lots of books, and it is endless, and we can go into that. And if one wants to, for example, become good at Sanskrit grammar, it is an ocean, and one can become better over time through studying to understanding and all of that. And that's true with any branch of knowledge, whether it's a traditional branch of knowledge or whether it's a modern branch of knowledge, the same process applies. But the part of the scriptures too, which is called, for instance, Vedanta, which is literally also means ending of knowledge. It can also be seen as the highest knowledge, but it can also be seen as ending of knowledge. Anta means the end. It is when knowledge stops, and it is when one cannot become through knowledge. The simple direct pointer that is given is that the one who is identified as moving through time is a false fiction of memory. That's the simple pointer. And if you recognize this, then the stillness is there automatically. What we take ourselves to be is always a false image projected through memory. And that false image that we have in our memory vis-a-vis various roles or functions or relations also comes in this way as the memory or the image of a seeker who wants to now remain still or be free or understand self knowledge or realize the self. So, the basic conundrum is that we bring the same process of accumulation and becoming into that which is outside the realm of accumulation and becoming. So, that is why the question how is essential in becoming, the question who is essential in being. So the only question that matters here is who am I is the question, that's why, not how will I be still. So who wants to be still? Again, if we ask the question, we will recognize that the stillness is already here, but it is clouded by the one who wants to be still. So to recognize and thereby be free of the one who wants to attain stillness as a future goal is to remain still here and now. And so to be still is therefore a direct pointer, not through gathering any knowledge, not through accumulating more memory, not through becoming better at anything, but the direct pointer that there is nobody who is journeying through time. There is only the material energy that journeys. The fiction of the me identified with this journeying through time is what comes in the way of being still. Then I look back, and then let's say some action happened. We look back and say, I could have done this, I should have done this. We worry about it, we regret it, we feel proud about it, or we speculate about the future, we desire something, we fear something. All these movements are only because the me is superimposed on activity. If we simply recognize this and say that activities happen on their own, then that's the end of that. It's finished. We don't look back at anything that happened. Whatever happened, happened perfectly as ordained. It is gunas interacting with gunas. There is nobody here to take ownership of any action and say, I did it, either to feel pride about it or to feel regret about it. There is nobody here to take ownership, to desire some future result or fear some future result. And when that false I is removed, that goes either back in time or forward in time or even in the present, then all that is left is the intelligence of the entire material energy that is unclouded. So we just let the material energy, the mind has its own energy, the intellect, the senses, the physical faculties, all of them have their own intelligence with which they function. And to let the functioning happen perfectly and not come in the way is to be surrendered. And when we are fully surrendered in this way, then what remains is stillness. And that stillness is fullness. It is nothing, it is everything. It is Shunya, it is Purna. It is the very true essence of our being, which is beyond all words, beyond all conceptions, and it remains as the ground of being itself. So we can never conceptualize it, we can never get it, we can never grasp it. Only when we let go of all those instincts and we simply let the gunas operate with the gunas and do not ever project a false me, and that requires alertness. When the me rises and says, I did this, I did that, I was very good at it, I was very bad at it, or any of this in a million ways, when the me comes up, to catch it as it rises and be aware of it and thereby not identified with it is the only essence of being still. That's why, even in the beginning, when we speak of listening or watching, the same process applies. We can be still while listening if we are not identified with the voice in the head as me. We can be still while watching, again, if we are not identified with the commentary in the head. So, whatever happens, if we do not identify with the thoughts rising, which is trying to move in time, saying, I was this way, I did this way, I could have done this, I should have done. There is all these ways in which the I comes. I like this, I don't like this, I think this is right, this is wrong. All these judgments, comparisons, speculations, second guessing, all of these are coming, and they are all different ways in which the me rises. So to be aware of this alertly as it rises is to be free of this false sense of becoming. And if we are very alert and aware of all this and be free of this, by we can verbally ask the question, who is thinking, who is watching, or we can even non-verbally just surrender it, and thereby we are free of this movement of the me, and there is the ground of stillness that comes on its own. We don't have to seek the stillness. The stillness is here if the false me is gone. As once Ramana Maharishi said nicely, if a room is cluttered and we need to create space, we don't actually create space, we just remove the clutter. The space reveals of itself. Similarly, we just have to remove the clutter of all the images stored in our memory, and that removal is done simply by alertness. We cannot remove it as an action because that will again bring about the same ego through the back door. But if we just remain alert as and when any image rises, to catch it the very moment it rises and thereby not be identified with it, is the way to be free of these images. And the moment we catch it, it doesn't have any hold on us, and what remains is that very ground of stillness in which these images come and go. Therefore, it's an active, intense stillness. That's why in one place in Upadesha Manjari, it says being still is intense activity. The intense activity is nothing but alertness, remaining supremely alert and not being caught in the false me is to be still. And when we remain in this way, in alertness, then we don't postpone it. We don't say, one day I'll realize the self. It's not something to be attained as a future goal. It's available here and now. And just because this moment we are free of the images and we are in stillness, the next moment There will be no image. That's not how it is, because there is the momentum of the vasanas, the momentum of memory, which will pull. So there is no escape from alertness each moment. If we remain alert each moment, then we are free of this false sense of becoming as me, and the ground of being, which is stillness, reveals itself.